Imagine for a moment that someone tells you kindness is not always the best approach. Would that surprise you? Kindness, a virtue we cherish, a quality that fosters compassion, builds relationships, and strengthens communities, could it really have a dark side? For Niccolo Machiavelli, the answer is yes. Even more unsettling is the idea that our traditional understanding of kindness may be one of the main reasons why power often slips through our hands. In The Prince, Machiavelli presents a harsh yet pragmatic truth. Politics is not about being good, but about being effective. Pure kindness can be a hindrance in the pursuit of power, and history itself proves that those who are considered good by conventional standards often become the most vulnerable. In politics, kindness is frequently mistaken for weakness. Being good does not necessarily equate to being strong. Rather, it can turn a person into an easy target, susceptible to manipulation or even destruction by those who seek control. Machiavelli challenges the notion that morality must always be upheld at all costs. Traditional morality, he argues, is often designed to maintain social order rather than serve the interests of individuals or leaders. A ruler, therefore, should not aim to be kind for the sake of kindness, but should instead use it as a strategic tool when necessary. According to Machiavelli, a leader must be prepared to act with ruthlessness when the situation demands it, even if it means tarnishing his reputation. This so-called dark side of kindness does not stem from kindness itself, but from an excessive attachment to it. A ruler who is overly committed to virtue without considering the realities of power may find himself blindsided. The ideal leader, according to Machiavelli, is neither wholly good nor entirely bad. Instead, he must be adaptable, able to switch between virtue and cunning as circumstances dictate. In other words, Machiavelli does not reject kindness outright, but he warns against the dangers of being exclusively good when power and stability are at stake. Politics, as Machiavelli describes it, is not a fair game. One of his most provocative assertions is that it is often more effective to be feared than to be loved. Extreme kindness can lead to a loss of respect, making a ruler seem weak and vulnerable. This does not mean that cruelty should be practiced without reason, but rather that a ruler must understand the necessity of maintaining authority. The moment a leader governs solely out of kindness, he risks becoming powerless, inviting rivals to exploit his benevolence. Machiavelli urges us to reconsider what it means to be a good ruler. In his view, the appearance of kindness can be useful, but true leadership requires making difficult choices, even if they conflict with traditional ethics. Principles of kindness and morality, while valuable in everyday life, are not always practical in governance. Instead, toughness and pragmatism are essential to maintaining control and ensuring long-term stability. Many of history's most successful rulers, such as Alexander the Great and Julius Caesar, were not universally virtuous. They employed ruthless tactics when necessary, consolidating power and securing their legacies despite criticisms of their methods. Their success lay in knowing when to display kindness and when to act with strategic cruelty. Machiavelli's key lesson is that human nature and power dynamics are far more complex than traditional morality suggests. Kindness, as commonly understood, is often regarded as an absolute virtue, but Machiavelli challenges us to move beyond idealistic perspectives and acknowledge that in the realm of power, virtues are merely tools. Morality is not a fixed principle. It is shaped by circumstances, and a leader's ability to adapt defines his effectiveness. Looking at history, some rulers have governed with kindness, while others have thrived through cunning. The common thread among successful leaders is their ability to read situations and adjust their strategies accordingly. Machiavelli argues that political decisions should not be constrained by rigid moral standards. Instead, they should be guided by an understanding of power, perception, and the vulnerabilities of opponents. One of Machiavelli's most famous statements, "The ends justify the means," encapsulates this mindset. He does not advocate for senseless cruelty, but rather emphasizes the need for pragmatism. A ruler who prioritizes virtue above all else may find himself paralyzed when tough decisions are required. Kindness should not be a constraint. Rather, it should be wielded intelligently, applied when beneficial, but set aside when survival demands it. The most effective leaders recognize that morality, like power, is fluid. True strength comes from knowing when to be compassionate and when to be firm. Kindness should be a tactical virtue, not a rigid moral doctrine that limits one's actions. Machiavelli's insight into human nature acknowledges that morality is, at its core, a social construct, and that leaders must be astute in managing public perception. Often, the illusion of kindness matters more than actual kindness itself. Ultimately, Machiavelli does not denounce kindness as a value, but warns against making it the foundation of leadership. Politics, he argues, is not a domain where conventional morality always applies. In many cases, a ruler must set aside kindness in favor of actions that ensure stability and control. The ability to strike a balance between kindness and ruthlessness is what separates a capable leader from a failed one. If we examine history, we find that even the most celebrated leaders were not purely good by traditional moral standards. Some were brutal, others were pragmatic, and yet all of them secured their objectives because they understood the power of perception. They used kindness strategically, leveraging it as a means to solidify their rule rather than as an uncompromising moral code. Machiavelli's view is both a critique of idealistic morality and a warning about the realities of power. Politics is not governed by universal moral laws, but by the ability to navigate complex human interactions. A leader must recognize when kindness is an asset and when it is a liability. In the end, success in leadership is not about being perceived as morally pure, but about achieving stability, security, and power. Are we willing to see kindness as a tool rather than an absolute principle? If our goal is survival, stability, and influence, then we must accept that morality has its limits. As Machiavelli suggests, true power lies in knowing when to be good and when to be ruthless, and that is a lesson that remains as relevant today as it was centuries ago, in a world where difficult decisions are an unavoidable reality. At the heart of Machiavelli's argument is the notion that morality and politics do not always align. He does not ask us to abandon morality, but rather to reconsider its role in leadership. Should we, as a society, rethink our relationship with morality in the context of power? Perhaps the real challenge lies in recognizing that wisdom in leadership is not about blindly adhering to virtue, but in understanding when and how to apply it strategically.